We are live. So now we just wait for everyone to show up. Like, what are you talking about this week?
Sumps.
We can talk about sumps. I think it's a good topic. It's something that people need. Something. And we are a little bit late because today, as we were setting up, the police showed up. So that was fun.
It was not me.
It was not this house. They showed up next door. And it wasn't one police car. It was two police cars and a fire truck and who knows what else. We heard sirens galore. So we thought, So we kind of kept staring for a second. Oh, look, we got thumbs down already. What's so mean? It's so quick. Okay, we need a lot of thumbs up to make up for the one down. Someone, oh yeah, that guy died a week ago. Where have you been? Yeah, Caitlin actually bought this new collar for me as a gift for my birthday, so I don't look so ancient. So I look nicer. No. And you know what? I like it. I think we're going to keep it. So until I one day shave it off, and then you won't see anything at all. You won't be able to judge my color or lack thereof.
Nice earrings, my love.
I should really get an earring, right? Just change everything, become a pirate. Look, we have barnacles. We found these in a store in downtown Fort Worth, and it was really pretty. So we had to have it, and now we have it. And that was also a birthday gift to me. So you have been treating me really well. Okay, she's not going to say anything today. She's going to be the silent. She loves to talk off camera, but when you're in front of the camera, she has nothing to say. Not a word, not a word. It's been a busy week. We've gotten a bunch of orders out, which is great. She's been helping, which is super nice.
Yeah, if anyone gets like a bad packaging job, I'm really sorry.
The tape is tricky. But, and Minion got fixed this week. Minion has been a big problem there's been a number of issues for the last few months, and it's been very frustrating because, people are like, where's my order? And one of the biggest frustrations has been getting bad acrylic. And I've been having a real struggle to get the stuff I want to use. And I called this week to two different suppliers and said, where is Chemcast? That's what I want. I don't want anything else. And the guy swore to me, okay, I've got something for you, but it's a little bit too big for your machine. We'll cut it down. So the delivery was made yesterday, and I have new acrylic that has nothing written on the paper to tell me it's Chemcast. So now it's like, what did you send me this time? But it just matters. It has to look right so it bonds together properly. And so it irritates me. And okay, so that's been one problem because I've been gluing things that looks like crap and I just want to throw it away. I won't send it to a customer. I hold on to it and then retry it again and again.
Sorry.
And then Minion got fixed this week. There was a problem with it stopping mid-program. And I would have to reset, continue where it left off, to cut things out. And something that should take 45 minutes took 3 hours to cut out. And so that has been completely rewired and it seems to be doing better. So that's good. And then yesterday we had a big remodel going on here in the bathroom, which is done. So now we have to dust. But anyway, that's all off topic. I just wanted to kind of catch you guys up on what's been going on this week. Other than that, I'm sure there's 200 other things that happened. But we're glad to be back with you for the live stream. Is this 2004? We
had to think about it.
We watched Kelly and Ryan, and they always say the date at the beginning of their show, and
Kelly got it wrong.
She said 2004 on an episode from last week, and we were like, what? But we knew that wasn't an ancient episode because people were wearing masks, so it's still there. The topic today is about sumps. So I wanted to ask you, the tanks that you have taken care of in your own home in the past, did they have a sump?
No.
None of them?
Actually one.
One.
But it was pretty low. It was just fish only, so it wasn't like that.
Okay, so it didn't need a lot of special filtration down there?
No.
Okay. I know you have experience with sumps because you are the queen of cleaning them all.
And destroying them.
No, you don't destroy them. No, she'll go in there, she'll really meticulously clean them top to bottom, and she'll fit her tiny little fingers in spots where no one else could possibly clean, just so that it looks nice and immaculate. And the benefit of a sump for me has always been a place to hide all the gear so you can enjoy your aquarium behind, enjoy the look like I do behind us. And just, man, it looks so pretty in person. I'm looking on the webcam and it's like, it's all right. But
actually, we had the shower guys here yesterday remodeling the shower, and they just stopped in front of the tank and wouldn't move. And we're like, You're supposed to be working?
Nah, I didn't care. The guy said,
cool.
"Are you a marine biologist?" I said, "I wish I was."
I laughed out loud.
Yeah, no, I wish I was. I wish I'd known back then that I wanted this. I might have studied about it. I don't know. Maybe I'd know everything about urchins and nothing more. So maybe it was good that I went into the hobby unbiased without that. I mean, I always loved saltwater, but this tank here has had a big sump underneath it since day one. The reef before it had a sump underneath of it. The 29-gallon started off as a aquarium only with hang-on-back stuff, and eventually I added a sump underneath it. The 55-gallon that I bought came with a horrible little sump. I mean, just garbage that I still can't believe they make them.
Yeah.
And so I remodeled it into something better, and it was still horrible until I just made a really huge sump that went wall to wall.
My 29-gallon, initially, I think it was like an overback filter.
Right. Yeah, and so a lot of people are buying all-in-one aquariums where everything's hiding behind a panel, and they're squeezing in a little heater, maybe a tiny UV, an adorable little skimmer, and then they have the return comp. But for any ease of working in the tank, it's so much nicer to have a real sump underneath. And so I do recommend it to. As a matter of fact, I really wish, I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about the topic. I wish every one of you, let's see how many are on here right this second. 125 people. I wish all 125 people of you, every single one of you, would type in if you're running a sump or not on your current aquarium right now. And I know we're going to get like 15 answers. But I would love to have a real poll of every person involved in this video. That would be so cool. And there's just no way to do it. Some people are just listening while they're working. They're not even near a keyboard or anything. Others just don't want to chime in. But to actually say, okay, out of 125 people, 75 have a sump, 25 all in one, and 15 are just a box of water that they just scrub the glass and manually change water for filtration.
My favorite tank actually was like 5 gallons. It was a nano.
Right. Oh, there was a guy that contacted me recently, and he showed me a picture of his ammonia. It's way off the chart. It's way high, and he says, "Is this cycle ever going to end?" And he said, "I put the shrimp in this aquarium in December, and this is February." And I was thinking, wow, that does seem like a very long time to have ammonia that high. And I said, "Have you been running the filtration?" He says, "No, nothing. It's just simmering, just waiting for this to break." It was on a 7-gallon tank. So I'm assuming that little shrimp, the normal shrimp I recommend, was too much for that body of water.
You need a sexy shrimp.
Well, no, but the point is, you know about using a shrimp to start a cycle, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I always say grab one shrimp from the deli, throw it in there, let it rot 3 days. But with such a body of water, maybe the ammonia got to 12 or some crazy number, and it's just taking forever to go to nitrite and then nitrate. But yeah, so it's those little tanks are very challenging for a number of reasons.
But they're so fulfilling, and you get to see all the little tiny fish.
And, yeah, and you can work on it far more easily than a big tank because it's not as much to tackle. Like, let's say you have a hair algae problem. It's a little tiny tank. You reach in and you handle it.
Well,
Where
the other
a 400-gallon with a hair algae problem would be a logistical nightmare.
My point has always been the more water you have, the more room there is for error. Whereas if you have a small tank, everything's so concentrated.
Right.
One little thing goes wrong.
But if that 5-gallon tank or a 7-gallon tank was on a sump, that increased the water volume, like you just said, to maybe now it's like 25, 30 gallons of water.
That's still not a lot.
But it would be easier to maintain than 5 gallons, for example.
True.
So if and look, we're getting some answers. No sump, 1, 2 with a sump, a couple combined with a sump. That's great. Yes, I run a sump.
I like your haircut too.
Gary says my daughter's fluval eco is so easy. I think there's a typo. Easy B. Stephen made it, or Stephen caught a live one, so he's back. Oh. My new sump will be 8 feet by 3 by 3. Wow, that's huge. What size tank are you putting that under? I'd love to know. Sounds like a 1,000-gallon system. Okay, so let's talk about what can go in the sump, and let's talk about the materials that are involved. A lot of people will set up a sump, not yet. A lot of people will set up a sump, and they'll use a glass aquarium, just a used one. And then they will glue baffles in, and they're relatively happy initially. But later on, like, ooh, I really want a nice sump. I want a custom-made one, or I want one of these certain zones and these different partitions, and I want things adjustable, and there's a lot of desires that come out these days. So in those scenarios, it's going to cost you more money than to DIY a glass aquarium that was handy.
Pistol shrimp, but make sure your phosphates and nitrates are.
Yeah. So if Paul was asking about pistol shrimp being a yes or a no. They're nice in certain environments. Obviously, the smaller the tank, the more likely you'll see it. Now, when you are choosing to make a sump, if you use a glass box, it's already made. You're just dealing with the insides. If you're wanting to make it out of acrylic yourself, you can. People have done crazy things like took plywood and put a rubber liner inside like they're doing pond liner. I've seen people just use troughs like the kind for Rubbermaid for feeding livestock, and those can be used, but that's more of a stacking sump where you have water pour into one and overflow into the next and overflow into the next, and that last section is the return zone. That's one way to kind of trap the bubbles. And then there's a company out of Minnesota or Michigan called Bash C, and they make their stuff out of PVC. So, and then you'll look around and you'll see some other brands. I think Ice Cap has now carried some sumps that are made of white PVC with a clear front window. So you have some hybrids out there as well. My biggest rule of thumb is the bigger the sump, the better. As much space as you can use under the tank is smart. I know people want to save it for the electrical. They want to make it really pretty. But having areas to reach in and put all your gear and still room to work around the gear and not so tight that you can't even reach your hand in there would be ideal.
Why would you put zinnia in a refugium?
Some people will put that in there to help remove nitrate. They'll just grow it out. The problem is if the zinnia crashes, it really affects the tank. So like if all those little flowering petals just decide to die at once,
they're so
bad.
Pretty though. I just
I know. Yeah, exactly. You're just cleaning the glass to look at the zinnia. Nobody would be looking at the tank. They're like, look at those flowers. They're moving. Yeah. If you have room in the sump for a refugium, that's great. A lot of people want to put a bunch of things in the tank at once. They want to really fill it up with, they want a top off. They want a skimmer zone. They want a refugium. They want this. They want that. They want that. They want to add a turf scrubber. There's just so many things, and there's no way to get all those things in there. I mean, you're not building an airplane. Where they have everything bolted to the walls, and it's just like immaculate and perfect. And it's insane with all the hydraulics. With us, we need to have room for that protein skimmer, maybe a reactor or two, the return pump, and some heaters. Anything else is extra things you have to deal with, such as filter socks, the refugium area where you clean out the plants from time to time.
Look, he hates building with acrylic, so lucky you do for him.
Yeah. And yeah, if you need something made of acrylic, you can contact me. I will do my best. I am doing my best, always trying to get these orders out as quickly as I can. The build time for sumps tends to be 8 weeks, possibly 12. COVID has made things way more complicated, but I'm still trying my best to get them out as rapidly as I can and shipped out safely where they get there intact.
It's also crazy. It seems like there's a shortage on
Yeah.
acrylic.
Well, what it
In general.
is, I think, there was always acrylic. It's not like it didn't exist. But then everyone wanted it, like hospitals and partitions at restaurants and post office and everywhere you go. But I think the problem is the quality of the acrylic went down because they're trying to push out as much as they possibly can for, I don't know if it's for safety reasons or to make the most money possible. It could just be, oh, we can just push this stuff out there, no one cares, because it's a divider. A divider doesn't matter. But for us, we're holding water in a container for 7 years or more. Those seams absolutely matter, and it's got to be perfect.
And they should look pretty.
Yeah, and it should look pretty. I like it when people tell me, man, this is so pretty, I don't want to get it wet. That is my favorite compliment. And I want perfect seams. That's what I want, and I want the stuff to bond properly. So, like I said, I got a new batch in. We'll see how this one does. Hopefully, if it doesn't meet my standards, it's not going to ship until I get some pieces of glue together right. But what else matters in your sump? A lot of times you'll hear people say, well, my sump is just an aquarium. There's no baffles, and I love it. And that's not really ideal because the water level will vary in the sump as water evaporates. And hooking up a top-off system can help keep it all the same height. But ideally, it would be best to put some baffles right after the protein skimmer. So the water drains into the sump. There's the protein skimmer sitting the exact same height of water all the time, no matter what. And then it goes downhill to the next zone, which you can auto top off. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you can then keep a skimmer that's not overflowing, not making a mess, and it'll be very easy to dial in. But if the water level varies in your sump up and down every single day, your protein skimmer will act out every single day. And you would say, well, this skimmer sucks. It's just not working right. And it's just because the water level is changing within the body because the water around it is changing around the body. So we want to make sure that the skimmer zone is always the right height. You need to know what's ideal for that protein skimmer. Many of them want to sit in 6 inches of water or 8 inches of water. Some can be in up to 12 inches of water. And our sumps, you should build the baffles to be the right height for that protein skimmer. But if for some reason you want the baffles to be a little bit taller, then you need to make a skimmer stand that goes under the protein skimmer to lift it up to the proper depth. Now, I make skimmer stands, so you have that option if you need that. Some people just grab egg crate or PVC pipe and they make some kind of a stand, or they'll use the Rubbermaid container and just set it down in the sump and put the skimmer on top of that just to lift it up 3-4 inches. But one thing I want to warn you about, or one of many things I want to warn you about, don't make your baffles so tall that the sump is full of water. Because when a power outage happens, which will happen whether the power goes out in your neighborhood or your pump fails for some reason,
Or using the hairdryer.
yeah, or someone trips a breaker, then you would need to make sure that the sump could hold all the rest of the water that drains down from the tank down into that sump. And if the sump is super full already, there's no room, it's just going to overflow. And then your floor is all wet, and then when power is restored, whether it's you tripping the breaker or fixing the pump or the power comes on from the city, all that water is going to go back in the tank, and the sump's going to be too low, and your top-off's going to kick on, and you're going to have water everywhere, and you won't know why.
That's
So it's really important that you make sure that you have that all really carefully under control.
Isn't that the same thing as egg crate?
Egg crate is the stuff that looks like crisscross. It's lighting diffuser for like in restaurants in the ceilings. Looks like 1,000 squares.
Yeah, well, isn't that what a frag is?
Frag racks can be made out of egg crate. It could also just be an actual stand with holes drilled in it that you put frags in, like a solid piece. Could be made out of PVC or acrylic. Caitlin is watching all your comments. She's like, I don't care what he says. I just want to read what people say.
I like to read.
Probes don't necessarily have to be attached to the sump. I know people like to do it because it looks nice, but there are many years where I just had the probes sitting in the skimmer section submerged, and they would measure the pH and the temperature and the ORP, and occasionally take them out and clean them. But having them attached to the wall of the sump in a nice little bracket, whether it's magnetic or glued on, is a clean way to do it. You definitely want to maintain these probes because they are measuring parameters around the clock to give you trends and graphs of how the tank is doing and allow you to make adjustments based on those numbers. What else do we jam in our sumps? I talked about the auto top-off system. There are many brands out there. There's the ATK from Apex. There's the Ice Cap ATO, which stands for auto top-off or automatic top-off. There's the Tunzi Osmolator, the Auto Aqua I've been using for a long time that I like. There's a lot of different brands out there you can use, and they are designed to draw water from a vessel nearby. Not direct. And this is the one thing that people want to do, and I strongly dissuade you from doing it. Don't hook up your RODI system directly to the sump with a float valve, because what will happen is that float's going to go down to ask for water. The RO unit's going to come on. Let's say it comes on for a few minutes and it turns off again, and it does this 9-10 times a day. So what's happening is every single time the RODI comes on, it pushes 100 TDS into your sump. And that's not good for the water because you have no way to avoid TDS creep. And you also have a membrane getting destroyed because it's cycling on and off much too much. So instead, run your RODI system once or twice a week and let it make a whole bunch of water, collect it in a reservoir, have the auto top-off system tied into that reservoir to draw water. So for example, on my 280-gallon tank, I had 2 wrapping paper containers that were plumbed together to give me a total of 15 gallons of top-off. And that took care of my tank for 3 days at a time. And every 3 days, I had to refill those containers. This tank, I did it differently. I built a large container down here that you can just see behind Caitlin there. And that container holds about 43 gallons of water. Come back. It holds about 43 gallons of water. It lasts about a good week. And then my RO system fills it up once a week. And it just tops off the tank all throughout the week. And all I have to do is make sure the sensors are clean. So if you're using any kind of automated system, make sure you have a little toothbrush and you clean off those optical sensors. If they're float switches, you want to brush them off, make sure they're clean and not gunked up. And that way they can continue to operate properly. It's good to have a top-off system that has redundancy. So if it has 1 or 2 switches in it, that way if one thing fails, the other one can take over and you don't add too much water accidentally.
I'm reading.
I just thought maybe you want to add something to that. No pressure. The plumbing going into the sump can be whatever you like.
Oh, look, where's Jack? Sleeping.
Yeah, she's been good. Oh, and I don't even have my finger on the mute button. All right, so we're ready now.
Yeah, she's asleep.
If you use PVC, it's the best long-term choice for plumbing. And plumbing PVC pipe is not super difficult. It's a little time-consuming that day that you're doing it, but everything's nice and rigid. You can put it where you need it. You can cut and put all your fittings together. It will cost you a little bit more money than just using flexible tubing, but you won't have anything like algae growing inside of it. You won't have it kinking like flexible tubing will do. So that's why I do recommend PVC. And the pipe is dirt cheap. It's all those darn fittings that really add up the price. We went to get some stuff at Home Depot this week, and
I love Home Depot.
something was, like nothing. And then all the pieces to connect it made the darn thing $50 or $70 or whatever it was that we had to pay for. But at the same time, it solves the problem. We move on with our lives. And that part is the best part. So while plumbing your tank to your sump may not be fun, and it might take you all day long, then it's going to last indefinitely, until you make some big major change in your household. So if you set that up that way, I think you'll be very happy with it, and you'll be able to have water flowing down and not worry it's going to leak or anything like that that could be irritating or a problem. Let's see. Some people like to cover their sumps. They want lids, and it's very tricky to do that. So there are some sumps out there like the Dream Sump that is made by...
It's not Neptune, is it?
No, it's that German company that uses the red and white. They're out of Florida, or their shop is based out of Florida. Fonamaren? No, Fonamaren's in that same warehouse. Anyway, they have these beautiful white sumps that have red, like, welding, and they have these panels that will fit with like a half circle and a half circle to fit right around the protein skimmer. The reactors slide down in a slot. Everything is completely contained, so not one dust can land inside that sump ever. And it's really pretty, but you have to remove all those lids every time you want to do something inside there. The benefit of the lids would be to reduce evaporation, but evaporation is a natural way to cool the entire system. So by trapping all the temperature inside there, you
say Germany?
Yeah, you may have to You may have to use a chiller to keep the tank the right temperature because of the lids. No, it's not Elos. It's a German thing.
I know, I'm looking.
They also sell the Red Dragon pumps. It's that brand.
Damn it. I mean, gosh darn it.
There you go. You know there's kids listening.
I said darn it. Red Dragon?
Red Dragon is one of the brands of the pumps. She's going to find it. She loves to Google stuff, I'm telling you. And Royal Exclusive.
Oh,
Look,
that's what
it's
I
right
said.
there. It's right there. Battle OCR beat you. And Anton beat you. And Sweden Grand beat you. Thank you, guys. And Anchor. Actually, Anchor was first. So, yeah. So, they're really pretty. I mean, they're gorgeous. And kind of expensive. That kind of setup, I think, runs $2,500 or greater. But boy, is it fancy. So, if you are in a situation in the winter and your home is really cold for some reason, heater's failed, wrapping your sump with some kind of insulation, whether it's foam sheets foam sheets, like the thick pink foam that I use. Or if you throw blankets over it. I wouldn't use regular insulation. It's got to be something that you can cut and affix to the sides. That'll help maintain temperature during that initial
cold spell
freeze, the cold spell. But you can remember to take it off later. And that can be helpful. Also, the heaters. The heaters can be in your sump, and they can be standing. They can be lying on their side. They don't melt sumps. People are always worried, well, if the heater touches my sump, it's going to damage it. Well, if you want, next time you are near your sump or just near your tank in general and you have a heater, hold it with your hand and see what it feels like. It doesn't feel like 1,000 degrees. It's not burning your hand. It's going to feel warm to the touch. You can hold it for a few seconds. A heater lying on an acrylic sump with a bunch of body of water will not melt it. What people do, the way they melt their sumps, is when they do a water change and they suck all the water out and the heater's still plugged in. So the heater is heating air, melting plastic, and eventually just cracks and shatters. So you want to make sure heaters are always unplugged during a water change, but submerged, they'll be completely fine touching the bottom. If you wanted a little bracket to put it somewhere, make sure it's a great place of high flow. For example, I make a heater hanger that I put between the baffles so the water has to flow over the heaters and out to get to the next zone. There's no way the water wasn't heated that way. But if they were like on the side wall of the refugium, for example, it's going to be passive heat. It's going to barely add the heat to your tank that you need. If you have an opportunity to put 2 heaters in your sump instead of 1, I highly recommend it. And I don't mean redundancy, like, oh, I need 2 because 1 might fail. I mean use 2 of them that add up to the total amount of wattage you need. So if you need 300 watts of heat, for example, for your aquarium, 250 watt heaters would be your best bet. I'm not saying put 2 300s. That's a terrible decision because that would be enough to cook your tank and kill everything in it.
I think you're supposed to take off your shirt.
Supposed to take off my shirt?
Never mind.
I must have missed something. Oh, they were talking to you.
Oh. Maybe they meant it off the sump.
Yeah. Sometimes a spot in the sump could have a lid or some kind of protective shield because of salt creep and salt spatter. For example, where the water flows into the sump and then goes into a filter sock, that might have a lid on top to kind of keep things tidy. And that makes sense. I've even made some that way myself. And on my sock box, I have a solid lid on top. And that way, it actually keeps the sound down too, which is nice. That's the one thing that people don't like, is they don't want to hear the water crashing into the sump.
Yeah.
They want everything to be as quiet as possible. They want it to be like a mouse. Just super, super quiet. And this sump is the newer version of what was under there for a long time. And you weren't here for the previous sump. But that one, water would pour into what I call the bubble tower. And there was 4 drains going in. And it was pretty rambunctious. And when I set up the new sump, I completely changed the plumbing to where it comes in the end of the sump. It actually comes down and goes in the sidewall into the sump itself, underwater. And it's dead silent. It's really neat. And, I mean, you barely hear anything on this tank right now, which I love. I mean, it's so nice compared to what it was. And I've mentioned this before in previous streams, how the tank has become so quiet that if anything makes a sound, I get annoyed now because I got the quietest skimmer, I got the quietest pump, I've got the drain super silent. So, like, for example, when the algae turf scrubber is on, it has cooling fans to avoid the lights from overheating. I make sure those run from 2:30 in the morning till about 12:30 in the daytime, so because that's when I sleep. And that way I don't have to hear it making a bunch of noise. Do you hear those fans run at night?
I hear everything.
No, I was just thinking, I wonder if you hear it. So I meant, when we talk about cooling, I'd mentioned a chiller. Some sumps can have room to actually put a fan bracket to where you can have fans sitting on top of the sump blowing straight down on the surface of the water. And that's a very cheap way to cool a tank or via the sump without having to see it or hear it because it can be down in your cabinets. Some people like to put some kind of a fan on the stand that the sump is inside because they've completely encased it and they have woodwork all the way around it. And yeah, I did this when I built it into mine. The stands that have cabinet doors on the front and your sump is inside and it's closed, those get really humid inside. And it would be smart to drill a hole in the side of the stand in a spot you don't see, like maybe if it's kind of facing a wall, and put one of those 120 millimeter fans on the side to blow fresh air into the stand, and it'll force out the humid air out of the stand, and that will help keep things nicer and avoid mold issues around the sump area. What else? I always try to think of every possible scenario that comes up.
No, I'm not his daughter.
Who asked that?
That guy.
Oh. Let's see. I think that's kind of it. Oh, I know another one. A lot of times people ask, can you put a black divider between this zone and that zone because I don't want the light from the refugium to make my protein skimmer dirty. And I always tell people the same thing. That baffle does not matter. If you make it black, you're making it black because you want it black. It's not going to change. Your skimmer will still be covered in algae because the light from the refugium is shining through the air against the side of the protein skimmer. The baffle's not tall enough. So in that scenario, you have to actually put some kind of a shield, like a curtain, between the refugium light and the rest of the sump. And that's what I've done in my own system to avoid nuisance algae growing inside reactors and in other parts of the sump. So you can use the black foam that is sold as I don't even know what it is. You can cut it with scissors. It's very thin. It's about the size of a placemat, and it costs 99 cents. And you can just attach it any way you want. Velcro, fishing line, dowels, I don't know, whatever you can rig. And it's completely inert. It won't cause any problems with your tank if it were to get wet, or if anything were to touch it, it's not going to like break down and hurt your system. And that shield between zone and zone will trap the light where it belongs. Some people will actually make like an entire circular, like a lampshade basically, over the refugium zone to trap that light in there and not have it anywhere else. And that's very smart. But the baffle itself being dark won't help, because light, even though you see it passing through the baffle and coming out the other side, you're seeing it visually, but that's not how light works. It's weird. I'm not a scientist, but what's literally happening is the light is bouncing back off the baffle and back into the refugium zone, but there's like an ambient light that shines through, and that's why you see it. And so like down here, I've got a light in my refugium. Let me point this down a little bit here. So I've got the light in the refugium. It's going through a baffle. There's another wall over there, and that's the top-off container, and there's no light in the top-off container at all. If this was literally letting light pass through it, you would see a bunch of light casting in there, and there would be algae problems in that RODI. But that doesn't happen because of the way the light bounces off the acrylic and comes back to the zone where it belongs. So it's weird, but it's true. So in case you didn't know that one, it's the truth. And if you go Google it and do the research, you'll find out the real mathematical, scientific reasons that I'm right. But I'm just the school of hard knocks. I just learned this stuff the hard way, and I just know. So. And I remember someone looked it up and said, "You're right." He showed me. I was like, "Hey, it makes total sense." So you don't really need to have dark baffles. Now, something you might want to do if you're designing a sump from scratch, you might, and you're going to make it out of acrylic, for example, maybe make the entire back of the sump black, or put a black film on the back. Because
the cover band's been there forever.
If you put the sump inside your stand or against a wall and you see the white wall behind it, and then you hang a bunch of equipment in there, you have all these power cords going back there, it's kind of ugly. But if the back of the sump is somehow blacked out or opaqued or something, all the wires behind would be relatively invisible and allow you to have a nice view of everything inside the sump without the distraction of all the stuff happening behind the sump, between the sump and the back wall. So that might be nice to do. And I guess that's it. I think I shall scroll way up and look for some questions to answer. We've been talking for about 45 minutes or so. Oh, not really. We've only talked 32 minutes. Oh. I usually have so much to say about sumps. And you do too. You talk about them all the time.
Yes.
I know. I told her the topic and she just looked at me like, really? Why don't you tell us a story from one of your fish store days?
Just like the time at my...
No, some other story. Not sump related. Just something cool that happened in the past.
I got bit by an eel.
Okay, that's a great story.
Great.
Why are you telling dramatic stories?
I don't know.
I just like maybe there's some fun thing that happened that you liked.
I didn't like it, but I liked the eel.
Okay, so she got bit by an eel. It was one of the...
it was a dragon moray, and he was a rescue, and I had to hand feed it. And one day I was hand feeding it, and someone asked me a question, and I turned around, and he thought my hand was the food. So.
Thought your finger was the food.
Right.
So he's biting into your finger.
Right.
Is he just going to let go again, or is he still holding on?
No, he kind of like tried to rip it off a little bit.
Rip your finger off, yeah.
And then,
and then you're bleeding.
Right.
Underwater.
Right.
And what did the customer ask you to do next?
He's like, "Aren't you going to ring me up?"
And she's like, "I'm going to get a Band-Aid." Yeah. Oh, I thought you'd have a fun story. That's just a violent story.
Fun story. I don't know. I used to hand pick the ick off the fish. Is that fun?
Okay, we'll practice this in the future, I promise.
You're putting me on the spot.
Well, I just thought you'd like, oh, I love this story. Let me tell this one. Okay, hand-picking ick. I don't know anyone else that does that but her. So do you just lay the fish down on a wet towel?
No, you let it swim, and then you get it comfortable with you, and then you start to...
While it's in the tank?
Yeah.
How many of you can do that with your fish? I want to hear this.
I used to do it all the time.
Wow.
It was very effective.
I haven't seen that one on Humble Fish's website.
Because he doesn't know. He doesn't know that trick.
All right. I was just trying to draw you into the conversation because I know it's about sumps. It's kind of boring. All right. I was.
What have I done interesting with sumps? Let me think.
Okay, we're just killing their time. This isn't fair. Let's answer some questions, and if anything pops into your head that you want to share, you know what? I do want you to talk about something. I want you, and we've talked about this already, so it's not like it's spur of the moment. We had talked about the ban in Hawaii,
Okay.
and you had a lot to say about it, and that was my stream was done. So tell us about your trip to Hawaii, which was about 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and why you went, and what did you learn?
Because captive breeding in Hawaii is important,
Mhm.
and it's important to the industry in general, because I think overall captive breeding is beneficial to the hobby and not detrimental.
Mhm.
And more fish die from bycatch than they do from any kind of fish collection,
Right.
ornamental fish collection. So, and then also when you think about how many people live their lives knowing that the only thing they know how to do is dive, and they're ornamental fish collectors. So I don't know. That's a whole.
No, it's a real topic. I mean,
Yeah.
we could go on for 10 minutes because it was very interesting because when I told her about the live stream, she says, "Oh," she goes, "This is exactly why I flew out there. I wanted to see it for my own eyes." And I was like, "You should have been on the stream."
Yeah.
The fisheries were closed. It's literally no more collecting of fish, and there are some, let's call them poachers now. They're struggling because, like you said, this is their only job. Their job is to catch fish.
Mhm.
That's the only thing they know. And now that it's been made illegal, right? Because they took away the legal right to catch fish for the aquarium hobby. Anyone collecting fish at this point would be breaking the law in Hawaii until that thing gets repealed again.
Yeah. I just remember going to the actual courts and seeing people saying like, "Oh no, the fish." And there's people who are I think well intentioned, and they want to make sure that the environment is safe, but they're also less than informed.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times what you'll see is emotional pleas about the poor animals versus the reality of what's really being happening. And the biggest problem is not them. They are just making their case. They're like, this isn't right.
Right.
As hobbyists, we're not really in a good position to defend it because we don't have the knowledge. The people that have the knowledge are the guys that go into the ocean and collect the fish, and then the distributors that collect the fish and track them and say we sold 5,000 yellow tangs and we sold 15,000 Christmas wrasses or 1,800 boxfish this year. If we had real data from multiple collectors that we could say this is the reality of what we're really taking from the ocean, this is what's being found in the ocean. Like let's say they said we take 5,000 yellow tangs a year. Okay, I'm just making up a random number.
You need to talk to Rhett.
And my point is, if we have a real number, we know for a fact this is how many were collected, and then there's guys that actually go out there and count the fish. It's the weirdest thing, but it's a real thing. They go out there and they go to a 1 mile or quarter mile area and they measure how many fish are in that one zone. Which I don't know how you do it, because if you've ever tried to count clownfish eggs on one rock in your tank and they're all next to each other, they're not even swimming, and you can't sit there and count them all without taking a picture, putting in Photoshop, and then putting a dot on each one as you count. And then you can say there's 387 eggs,
You
right?
think they do it by weight?
But fish are swimming, moving objects. And even us, when we're looking at the skunk clowns, are there 11? And we keep counting and counting and counting, we keep getting 10. Or we go and we look at the Bengais, and we're like, are there 5 or are there 4? But somehow they're counting. But the point is, if they said in the ocean around the island of Hawaii, there's 500,000 yellow tangs, and 5,000 were collected for the aquarium hobby in 2020, there'd be no argument. See what I'm saying? But instead, someone's using sonar to count? Okay, I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's cool.
But that's my point, is if we had, the problem is, and like I said, it's not really us individual hobbyists, we don't collect data to hand over to the courts to prove we're doing nothing wrong. And that's the problem. When they say there's this many tigers left on the planet, and they say it's like 600 or 200 or whatever, they know how many tigers are left. And if a poacher goes out, he pays whatever he pays to kill one tiger. I hate it, but it happens. But now there's one less, but we know there's still this many left.
Also, the fish that you're taking out of the ocean for the aquarium industry, there's more fish that die from being food
Right.
than there are that are being pulled out.
And you said bycatch before, and you're talking about they were catching something else and
like they were
accidentally
just
got
food
yellow
fishing.
tangs.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see, and that's the part that drives us crazy. We'll see, we see the same thing people do. You know how they see that one picture of all the yellow tangs lying on the dirt, and there's like 200 of them dead, and they're like, oh, the aquarium hobby is killing these. Well, then we see a cooler filled with Achilles tangs, and it's being sold for like $5 a pound. And you can get 8 Achilles tangs for $5. And yet we would pay $260 for one Achilles tang to take care of for the next 15 years of our lives or longer. We care way more about it than the person wants to eat it. But the eating doesn't get criticized because people have to eat. But hobbyists get criticized. And so because of the emotional pleas and the lack of eat, sleep, breathe. The problem is that we have one side emotional. We don't have the proper data to defend ourselves, which would make this so much easier. And then even though there was scientific data put to the courts pushed it aside and went with the popular opinion this time, which is shocking.
See, it is sonar. Wow.
And here we are now. It's closed, and the people that she met, the people that she visited, that were actually fishermen, that were going out to find fish for the aquarium trade, are now out of work. And when you're out of work on an island, there's not a lot of choices. You can say, "Oh, just get another job." Where's my phone? Dang it! Can you find my phone? Here, take this so you don't drop it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make the dog bark.
Oh, I see it.
Oh, good. There's a thing that came out on CNS, NBC, or something like that, and it was about how jobs have changed since COVID. And I saw that and I took a screenshot. So this is in January, and I've got this graph here. So I'll read it to you guys here. But it showed how the jobs have changed from what they were in the past. Now, this is a CNBC, by the way, and it was a source from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it showed how leisure and hospitality jobs are down 61,000 jobs. Healthcare and social assistance is down 40,000. Retail trade is down 38,000 jobs. Transportation and warehousing is 28,000. These are all negative numbers. What's really increased was professional and business services. And it's those that are doing, basically like us, a small business out of your home, providing a service to other people that they can't otherwise get easily because of COVID. And there's been an increase of government jobs. I can't believe it. That went up 43,000. But yeah, there's been a shift in jobs. As you know, many people are trying to work from home now. They're not actually going to an office and clocking in from 9 to 5. And they're able to do what they need to do from home. They're allowed to be with their families more. There's been changes.
Yeah.
Well,
that's bad. The Philippines?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so was there anything else about the Hawaiian thing you wanted to share? Because you were telling me all this cool stuff.
I just get really angry and heated about it.
Well, I wasn't trying to get you angry on the show. I just you just want to share your voice. Because you had met some of the breeders that are actually trying to tank raise or
captive breed.
Captive breed.
Yeah.
So they take 2 fish and rub them together to make eggs and sperm. And actually, we're not talking about just getting the eggs from the ocean,
That's
right?
exactly how that happens. No.
I said that make you laugh. Okay. But they collect, male and female.
Well, usually there's an abundance of both males and females, and then whatever fish decide they want to do the dirty.
Right. So they're making a mated pair, and from that point, because we were just talking about this the other day about those that just get the eggs from the ocean and leave the parents alone and raise that was different from captive breeding.
Yeah, it's like tank raised.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
So that kind of effort is great, and there's been a huge increase in the last 10 years of how many other fish are being raised that way. So we're not taking from the ocean. We're not just taking from a limited or wiping out a finite number of fish. But the professional fishermen that are out there to catch big catches, and then the food trade is definitely destroying way more than the little bit that we do as individual hobbyists. So that was the one topic I thought you'd enjoy talking about a little bit. Maybe I was wrong.
No, it just makes me mad.
Yeah. This month is Mini Macna. If you didn't go to macna.org and sign up, it's $10. It's a virtual conference. There's 3 speakers. There's some meetups that evening. Please do sign up. Go to macna.org right now before you forget and sign up. I don't know that there's a cap. Like, I don't know if their Zoom can hold up to 500 people, for example, or what the numbers are. But we did it last fall, and we had a really nice time, and that was for 3 days. So if you can go to this one, I mean, why not? And then still on the books is the actual MACNA in Atlanta, Georgia this September, and hopefully things will be good enough that we can actually go to it and meet up with one another. I don't know. I'm wondering if people, once vaccinated, will still wear masks, or if they will say, well, I'm vaccinated now, I don't need a mask anymore. I wonder if that's going to happen. What would you do?
I'd probably still wear one.
Yeah. Makes me mad.
I know. I hate it. I'm
Yeah.
not a fan.
We were putting on our mask the other day, and she was saying how, a year ago we were just like, oh. And now it's become a part of our life, and it's like it's normal to put one
It's like
on.
putting on your underwear.
I know. It's like
crazy.
you have to put it on, and you just do it, and you can do it fluidly because you've been doing it for a year.
Look, she's going.
But it's awful. We want things to be back to the way they were previously before that.
What's my profession?
At this point,
Resident fish girl person thing. Dog trainer.
Mila's Reef number 2. She helps with bookkeeping. She helps with packaging. She helps with inventory.
Cleaning.
Oh, she loves cleaning. Not a lie. She does. She likes to get her arms deep in the tank and scrub things down to get nice and pretty. But no, she's just really become a great help. I really appreciate that. So that's been nice. It allows me to focus on the things I have to build. Yeah.
Oh, and I'm your FedEx delivery driver person thing.
Say that again.
I go to the post office for you.
And FedEx. So you're my FedEx delivery driver person thing?
Yeah.
Thank you. Regis has said here in the chat that those with MASNA membership that have paid the annual dues, they get in for free for Mini Macna. And I paid for my for my ticket to go.
Yeah, you found out too late.
And then I got an email saying, "Hey, you're a MASNA member. It's free entry." So I paid, but $10, whatever. I'm helping MASNA. It doesn't make me upset. So if you can, if you are a MASNA member, great. You can attend for free. If you want to become a MASNA member, it all goes toward the supporting the clubs across the nation, if not internationally. And it also is used a little bit for legal stuff, too.
I think live foods are probably hard to get around here. In New York, we had them all the time because we had the ocean right there, but we're in Texas, so we can't feed.
I love how you just... Ooh, something shiny! Okay, you have to remember the conversation is flowing a certain way, Kelly. We watch too much Kelly and Ryan. All right, so at this point, we will take a transition. There's 252 people on here right now. Thank you for all the thumbs up, by the way. That was nice.
It was.
And we're going to scroll up here. If you have any questions, do @MeLovesReef or @Kate, C-A-I-T, and we will answer those questions for you because it's easier to see it in the chat because there's a lot of conversations going on here.
Hi, Pam.
Alfonso says, we need more of your videos about acrylic for me to make my acrylic sump. I already have the glue. Well, that's a great start. The glue is very important, obviously. If you've worked with woodworking before, you can definitely work with acrylic. It's just more meticulous because it has to hold every drop. When we work with wood, we just need it to make it look nice. But if you can be very precise with your cuts and your edges and get really good seams, and it's good to practice. I know people say, well, I want to make a tank. And I'm always thinking, well, make something small. Try out something little, put some water in it, kind of stare at it, see how it holds up for a little while, because you want this thing to stick together for a long, long time. And while there is some videos about this, and on this channel there is, you can type in, on the Mila's Reef channel, just type in acrylic and hit search, and you'll see what pops up. I don't share everything because it's what I do for a living, but on the website, I have a whole bunch of DIY information that teaches you what tools to use, what jigs to use, it even shows the pin method.
Wow,
It's
you're
all
like
there.
a bitchy chef.
Am I?
I'm not going to give you the secret ingredient.
I'm not going to give you every ingredient, but I'll give you most of them. Let's see. Ivan is saying hello from Norway.
Never been there.
I don't believe I've been to Norway either. Paul says, what is the cost of a yellow tang in the United States? There's a few left in the UK, and they're 170 USD.
I feel like they're more here.
I was going to say, I think I've heard higher. It just depends. I mean, I
Wait,
guarantee
no,
you.
there was that person who found one for like $5 at PetSmart.
That's what I was about to say. While there will be some online websites that have bumped their price way up because of the limited numbers, there's others that walk into PetSmart or Petco, and there's some, and they're on sale. So it's not like the word got out to everyone that Hawaii has closed, and the employees at Petco may not know what happened in Hawaii, and they're just doing their daily job. And like, we've had this 3 weeks, mark it down, and you might find a good deal. Let's see, next question. Hey, look at this one. Password says, I wanted to be a marine biologist, and my dad talked me into being in engineering instead.
What have you engineered?
Trains.
Is that a joke? That was a dad joke.
It's a dad joke.
Oh, God.
Quite a few people said they had a sump. Sump. Thanks for answering that question, y'all. Joe says, I just added a Red Sea DIY screen top to my 150-gallon reef. Would like to get a snowflake eel now that it can't escape. Should I worry about my fish? The smallest are 2 clowns, a small chorus wrasse.
No, they should be fine.
They should be okay as long as you're feeding that eel on a regular basis, at least once a week, possibly offering a second time a week.
Because our Snowy's in there with cardinals.
Right. Yeah, but opportunity could turn into a meal. So it's not like it's going to hunt down your clown to kill it. If it's being fed, it's not going to go eat its tank mates necessarily. But if it goes in and you can't feed it and it's being elusive and it's been 3 weeks and suddenly there's a small fish missing, that would be because it's trying to survive.
I told you about my first tank 15 years ago, and it was a 29, and I had, this is embarrassing, a panther grouper, a snowflake eel, and some really pretty blue
damsels.
Blue damsels, but they were like the sapphire damsels. And one day my eel was just like, hey, I'm bored. I ate them all. It sucked.
And it was a 29-gallon. They had nowhere to swim away.
Ugh,
yeah.
It happens.
How long did you have that tank set up?
Years.
Years?
Years.
You had a grouper and... bad. Okay, we got a...
No.
Thanks for tuning in. We got a...
I did not have the grouper for years. I had the tank for years.
Okay. It's like, what were you thinking? You're making us look bad. All right, let's see. Next question. Lucas says, I had an all-in-one Red Sea Max. I hated it. Couldn't find a skimmer that fits in there. Hated it. It was a nutrient factory upgraded to another tank on the system. I love it. I'll put another tank. Having some way to expand, even an all-in-one could technically be altered if you drilled the back and ran pipes down to a sump, and you could kind of have that as a partition in the back.
You know, be fun.
What?
If I fun.
No, that would not be fun.
They
all right,
see your fishes.
We'll wait a little bit.
Okay.
All right. What are you going to use? She wants to feed the fish for y'all.
Pellets.
Pellets? All right. You can take that with you and put in your pocket. All right, she's going to go find some food. I'm going to find some questions.
Oh, look, I found some.
A lot of people have some. I'm actually proud of you guys. It's like you're listening.
Look. I really just want to see how freaky you get.
Well, this is where it's been coming out lately. In that spot there.
Under the tongue.
So we'll see. There's a cucumber right there. I know it's hard for you guys to see this stuff. I'm looking for the next question. I'm sorry you're waiting. Mike says, I have a sump, but it's practically useless at this point. It's just a place to dose, hold heaters, and probes. Mike, put some stuff in it. You know, I asked for 125 answers, and I got like 100 sump answers. I guess I shouldn't complain. That's good. I can't find the questions, though.
Mark. Oh my God.
There's the Hill Freaky.
Don't scare him. Do not scare him. Oh!
That wasn't me. That was the Antheus. Anyway.
He's so cute.
He came out of that spot right down there.
He's so little.
Look at our lighting in here. It's like Hollywood. There's Caitlin. You shouldn't have got up. You knew better. All right. They heard that. You're wearing a mic.
Damn it.
Oh, nice. Sam says, thanks for suggesting the MP40s. I picked up 2 almost brand new ones for $560. Yeah, you still save some money. I still love the Vortex. Actually, I like the way it is. Looks good. Frage, I think I said your name right. First time riding here, watching from Denmark. Hello. It's 120 gallon plus with a nano, both with a sump. Oh, nice. Got a sump answer from Denmark. I like that.
There's Jason. Ask him where our cookies are.
You're in the freezer. Ugh. Oh, you mean new ones? He's never going to give us any more because I saved them all in the freezer. Because they're so pretty. Jason makes the most pretty cookies. You guys have seen them before.
That cookie fish guy.
Yeah. Now, we touched on this briefly, but Rob asked specifically, what are your thoughts on putting zinnia in the refugium? So pulsing zinnia, there's a couple of styles. There's Red Sea zinnia, and then there's the white pom-pom zinnia. The white is the one I prefer. It does grow in abundance. When the tank is doing really well, it grows like crazy. And when the tank is not doing well, it starts to melt away.
The beast awoke.
I saw. So if you have a refugium filled with zinnia, just keep an eye on your parameters. That's all I can say. I mean, just there was a true story. A friend of mine in the Dallas Fort Worth club was
guys. Oh my God! Sorry, look.
She loves seeing the 1.25 inch fish in the 400 gallon tank. Look what you're doing to the camera as you do it.
Okay, well look.
Look, there's no fish.
Fuck.
Hey! God. You cannot talk like a New Yorker on this channel. This is family friendly. Gotta mute you. I'm fucking Mike. Good Lord. Sorry, guys. I will try to remove that later before this gets published. Because they will ding us for that. YouTube's like, you cannot speak like that. All right. I was answering about the zinnia. So, true story. This hobbyist had red planaria flatworms in his tank, and he treated the tank to kill the flatworms. As the flatworms died, they released their toxin in the water, which killed the zinnia. The zinnia died. No, he didn't treat the tank. That wasn't it. He had the flatworms. He had the zinnia. What happened was he had a magnet split in the protein skimmer's pump, and the splitting magnet, released rust into the water, which killed the flatworms. The flatworms died, which released their toxins, which killed the zinnia. The zinnia died, which killed the entire reef. So there is an element of risk that having zinnia in your refugium, something could potentially go wrong. And in this case, it wasn't overdosing, it wasn't anything other than a magnet failed inside a protein skimmer, which you can't really plan for. These things just happen, and it was unfortunate. He was devastated to lose his entire system, and it all started from that. Stop cussing! What time is it? I have to look at the marker. 59 minutes. All right, so probably 58 and 59 I have to trim out. You can't cut. Turn your filter on. She has no filter. All right, I apologize, guys.
We don't need it.
I don't know what all you can hear, but we took her mic off of her, but still. I don't know if I can still put this on the screen. It says, you guys are awesome. Stop cussing on camera. Yes. Just stay like that. That was funny. Reef the Sea Forever says, would you run a Clara C roller? The Clara C is another nice alternative to the to the filter sock, and you can set up a system to have some of the water from the tank drain into it, pass through its fleece. It automatically forwards itself. It is a nice alternative to having to change socks out every 3 days. I've had one on this tank now for the last year or so. I removed it briefly for something, and I need to buy a new roll so I can get it back on the system. But I do feel like it makes a difference in making the water more clear. I don't know the answer to that.
Just watch.
Dave says, do you think it's better to get a custom sump with what you want, or just get one like the Trigger System sump that's pre-built? It really comes down to what you're trying to accomplish. If you like what is coming right out of the box, just something off the shelf that you can use and it does what you need, that's great. But if you have very specific desires and you're wanting something that meets those demands, you may want to go custom. It's going to cost you more, of course, and there's more time waiting for it because it has to be made. But that's just like, do you want to buy an aquarium off the shelf at Petco, or do you want to order one from Reef Savvy that you have to wait 9 months for? There's a lot of that kind of thought process. You have to decide. It's nice to get things instantly. I get it. But I also am really good at waiting for something for a long time before I finally pull the trigger. Reef the Sea says, do you have any examples of your sumps? Well, my website's got a whole bunch of examples. You actually go to Reef Shop and hit sumps, and there's like 6 different ones there. And then I share a lot of pictures of sumps on the Mila's Reef page here on Facebook. I say here, there on Facebook. Let's see. Do I have that link here somewhere? I might have removed it, but facebook.com/Milo's Reef, and there's a whole photo section. And you can see sumps, top-off containers, skimmer stands, photo boxes. A lot of the things I make are in there. Also, you might see some stuff on my Instagram as well, which is also Milo's Reef, which is the same as this channel. But I don't have one here that I can just pull out and show you because they're installed under my systems. But there are pictures of these even on my website as well. Paul says, I honestly think you have a sump fetish. Aquablog. Oh, Aquablog. Got it. From Greetings from Poland says, when I make a water change, do I take 10% of the total volume or the 10% of the sump, or part of the tank? You want to know the total water volume of everything. And the total water volume is the real water inside your aquarium, not like this one here basically is 400 gallons. But internally, it does not hold 400 gallons. It may be 320 gallons of real water in there because of inside measurements, the thickness of the glass, the displacement of sand and rock.
And all the stuffs.
And all the corals. And there's also, it's not filled to the brim. So it's down a couple inches from the top. And when you have all of that taken into consideration, then you have a sump underneath. And let's say it's an 80-gallon sump, but it only holds 35 gallons of real water. Now you're adding up the real water in the sump and the real water in the display. You combine those two together. Now you know your total water volume. And once you know your total water volume, then you can decide what your 10% is. Caitlin is trying so hard to get my attention to tell me to look at the fish that we have, that we see every day.
This is so exciting.
I know, but I'm talking to the camera.
Mark, look.
It's right there. Now can I get back to the stream? Yeah, the little how freaky is there, guys. All right.
So
Yeah. I don't know where we are in this chat, but I see a thing that says, quiet, Caitlin. That's funny. All right, easy now. Let's see. Um, I think I discussed this already with Rob. As a matter of fact, you might have asked it around the time I was thinking. He said, what about heater placement? There are different places you could put it. For example, if you have overflow boxes in your tank, you could stand them up in the overflow boxes where the water flows through them and down to the sump beneath. Or you can put it in the skimmer section where the water's going to flow over the heaters or around them to get to the next zone. I just don't want to put them in a spot where the water is less, that's moving less fluidly or less quickly. I want to make sure it's water is literally passing over those heaters constantly so you're getting the most benefit out of them. And then Sojournaut 47 says, what do you think about the Reef Pi controllers? The nice thing about Reef Pi is you can pretty much program your own, and you can expand on and add all your little components. You could add more probes and so forth, and build yourself a quite a nice little controller. But it's kind of standalone, where there may be a small community, like there's a community for everything, and you could then discuss things with others that run the Reef Pi to come up with really cool coding ideas. So it's not very popular here in the US that I'm aware of. I hear people mention it once in a blue moon. A lot of people are buying the standard things. I even had someone ask me last night if I could talk about controllers, and I do have an entire stream about the Apex that I discussed. And there's now the new Hydros that came out that CoralView is distributing, which I only know a little bit about, but I've heard some good things. So I mean, there's a lot of choices on the market now of what you could buy to control your tank. And then there's also GHL has been around for a long time. That's another controller that has some strengths and it has some weaknesses that makes it really hard to know what to buy. I've been running the Aqua controller for a very long time, which is just like the Apex. I mean, it's just that's the previous version of what the Apex is called to this day. And it's, go ahead, take your picture.
So cute.
Well, you knew that was going to happen.
I wanted you to see what I'm so excited about.
Doesn't matter now, it's not there. But I think I've had the Aqua controller since about 2004. It came with a 280-gallon tank. It was destroyed by being flooded because the sump was not built correctly, and it overflowed and the tank wasn't built correctly, and half the tank drained into that sump that was way too full, flooded the entire living room, flooded everything electronic lying on the floor because none of it was screwed up on the cabinets. The whole thing was a big giant mess. The hardwood floors were ruined, but I got the tank. And I ran that tank for 6 years, properly set up, and didn't have any problems. The controller, the Aqua controller, had been damaged. I shipped it to them and said, can you fix it? And they said the motherboard has to be replaced. It's going to be $100, $150, $200, whatever it was. And I ran it for years. And then somewhere around, I don't know, 2016 or so, they came out with the newer Apex. So I went from Aqua Controller 2 to Aqua Controller 3. Then I had something that was called Apex. And then finally it was called Apex 2016, which these days now we just call it Apex. So I've been with that company for a very long time. I'm very familiar with the code. And even then, I still ask for help from time to time from other hobbyists. Now you can see the fish. That is what's getting Caitlin so excited today.
His face.
Yeah, it's in focus on here. It's just hard. It's wanting to focus on all of us instead of the fish. Very nice shot. There you go. Stick that on Instagram.
I'm not your publicist.
What good are you? Let's see. Stefan says, I'm thinking about the Reef Breeders Exo ATO. Seems to have great reviews. I haven't even heard of it. That one's news to me. I'll have to check it out.
Oh, you see his little face. Sorry. What?
Lots of Royal exclusives. I love it when you guys give me the answer to when my brain can't remember on camera.
My brain can never work on camera.
Be careful of my barnacle. She moved it! Okay, here's a good one. Heron says, thoughts on sumps not below the display, either above or on the side. The best size, bigger is best, same volume as the display. And then, how's Caitlin's tank coming along? She has no microphone, so she can't tell you. There's nothing to say yet. Thumbs down. But we've been dealing with bigger fish. So when we get all those things handled, then we can focus on her tank. Now, regarding a sump behind or underneath or above or whatever, there are scenarios where someone will put a sump up higher or adjacent or behind it. Usually the best approach is to drain from the tank into the sump. And for example, if I were to make a new tank that was sitting directly on the floor behind me and was 4 feet tall, I could then drain out of that tank as it's 4 feet tall down, whatever it is, about 18 inches into a sump behind it. And that would be nice, and we'd have a nice look down reef. But if we had to pump water from the display into a sump and have it drain back down, the water draining from the sump could essentially put bubbles into the tank, and that would be a problem. So we don't want that to happen. Now, when it comes to size of sump, I always suggest bigger is better. Because if it gets if it's too small, it's going to overflow or there's a lack of room to work. I like to have a working space. I like to have space for future ideas. Mine is maxed out at this point, but we've added quite a few things to it. It's got the fans built into the top. It's got a shelf for the trident. It's got an automatic algae turf scrubber jammed in there. There's a heater hanger jammed in there. There's a reactor in there. There's so many things going on in there. She's still cursing. Save that, 111. Brock says, what is your turnover rate of the total display volume through the sump? I'm probably moving around 2,200 to 2,500 gallons an hour from my reef down into my sump and back up. That would be my guess. I haven't got a way to actually measure that.
This one, because look, his little fin is up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looks good. It's like she doesn't know I'm on camera.
I'm excited.
I see that. They see that. JP says, what are your thoughts on adding sand to a refugium? I like to add 1 inch of sand in the refugium zone of a sump because that's just enough room for the worms and the bugs to live, but it's not so much that it takes a lot of water volume out of your refugium zone, so there's room for the plants to grow. By the way, this is completely normal. This is every day. She just turns her back on the stream and goes and entertains herself and then yells at the fish for not cooperating. This is very normal.
Listen, did you sign up for normal?
Anchor says, aren't residential or residential candles smoke wax a problem for reef tanks?
No.
If you're using too many candles and the room just smells of all the different fumes or essences, that could be a problem. But we've been running candles throughout the house, and there's been absolutely no effect on the tank at all.
I blew it out when he asked that.
Yeah. Oh, see, you killed her joy. But no, we haven't had any problems. We don't just have them like constantly going next to the tank. This one here was in front of the tank for the show. Sometimes they're on a table in the other room, or they're in the bedroom or the bathrooms, and it's just nice. But it hasn't been a problem. I think because there's not so much, and because there's such a great water volume, we don't have a problem. But it is a good question to be careful of what is in the environment around where your aquarium is, such as hairsprays and aerosols and things like of those nature that could affect things.
Cleaning stuff.
Yeah, cleaning supplies could be risky.
That's why I use pet grounds.
Nick says, what's your suggestion for plumbing a Thieling roller mat externally into the sump? I was thinking a bulkhead through the side. Yes, you can do that, assuming that the Thieling roller mat assembly doesn't leak. That's something that I would possibly be worried about. I feel like someone had me build him an acrylic box that he put that roller mat in, and then he plumbed that with a bulkhead through the side of the sump into the rest because there was no room for it. So that would probably be safer because I don't think they're 100% external waterproof. But you can double check that and see if I'm wrong. But I believe that needs to be in something that if anything's dripping out, some kind of a drip tray that then flows into the sump might be smart, especially if it drips significantly. Rob says, what's a good time to add a couple of jars of pods into my refugium? Well, the refugium has nothing in it but plants and pods and worms, so you can add it anytime you want. If you're adding it into a system that had fish in there, I would do it after lights out when the fish are all asleep, so the pods have a chance to get into the rockwork and into the sand and into the plants before they're devoured. Elmer says, do you think fish are bothered by loud vibrations from the sump and the pumps, etc.?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, but not usually. It depends. I mean, think about this. Some of us have our entire setup inside the living room, and we have a surround sound, and we're watching Independence Day with movies just pounding away. And the question is, will it affect the tank at all?
It will.
You can watch the livestock and see if there's any kind of response whatsoever, because it is a valid question. But I've had movies going and stuff, and I've never seen any change, or the fish didn't suddenly do something weird, or like look at the TV all of a sudden, or anything like that. But we definitely want to make sure that our pumps are running quietly.
My uncle,
face me. That way, maybe the microphone will get this.
My uncle had a really nice fish tank, saltwater, and he also encased it with surround sound, and he turned the stereo on full blast, and all the fish died.
Wow, freshwater?
No.
Saltwater?
Saltwater.
Wow, why'd your uncle do that?
Not on purpose.
It sounded like you said he surrounded the tank with surround sound.
Because it was like a focal point.
All right, so don't do that. Don't be like her uncle. I'm not sure what I'm reading here. Trevor asked a question. I was wondering if you give us a rundown on something lying background on fish keeping would be interesting. I don't know. Trevor, try that again without the typo. I think it's a typo. Maybe we can answer that. Their Briar Patch said, Caitlin's earrings are fire. So she took them off.
They also hurt like fire.
Ah.
I don't have earlobes. So.
Reefer Madness says, I'm going to be building my sump today for a 30-gallon tank with a 50-gallon tank. Oh, making a 30-gallon sump to go under a 50-gallon tank. Any tips on flow? Sorry, I didn't finish reading that. Like gallons per hour, gallons per minute. I plan to have a skimmer section, refugium, and filter socks. Well, it's a 50-gallon tank, so I would probably have like a Mag 5 or a Mag 7, that type of pump for my return pump, because it's not a big tank. And when I say the Mag 5, Mag 7, those are just because they've been around forever and I like them. They are AC pumps that just run forever. And the threaded part of that pump is ½ inch, if I remember correctly. So you would actually use 1-inch pipe to go up. That way you can actually get the gallons per hour that it offers. If you screw ½ inch plumbing onto that ½ inch threaded nipple, you will actually overheat the pump, which heats the tank and is a problem. So you want the opposite. You want to have plenty of flow going through the mag pump. There's other pumps on the market you could use, like Siki or Siche or Eheim. I'm going to say 500 gallons an hour would be my maximum flow through the sump. Maybe even a little bit less, because you want to flow through quietly.
Sorry, I said that one.
Will says, can a 16 by 16 by 20 sump be effective on a 75-gallon mixed reef for a couple of years? You must mean 20 inches long, 16 wide, 16 tall, I think. That could probably work, but it sounds a little small for a 75-gallon system. If it was me, I'd have one that's 40 inches long. So that way there's plenty of room to hold all the water from that system.
Should I use your actual camera?
No. This is the question you saw before. Ilya asked, is the copper ant a new fish? No, it's been in here for a while. A couple of years, probably.
He's doing really well.
Unreefer says, foam poster board? No, it's not poster board. It's literally foam. It looks like the same stuff that kids play with.
This stuff?
No, not that. I was talking about the shield down beneath for the between the light of the refugium and the skimmer zone. This foam is, like I said, about the size of a placemat. It's 99 cents, so it's $1. You can cut it with scissors because it's thin, and it's just pure foam. And it reminds me of the toys that are like shapes cut out that kids would take in the bathtub and stick to the tile wall for fun. Whatever that material is, that's what this stuff is. It's just some kind of a soft foam. If you took your fingernail and pressed it in, it would leave a nick from your fingernail. But it's very inexpensive, and I've been using it for years. I'd pick it up at Hobby Lobby. Other companies would sell it as well. Probably find it on Amazon. It's just something. It's arts and crafts type foam. Maybe that helps. I wish I knew. Oh, it's this, like Coroplast, but it's not. Coroplast, by the way, is another choice you could use, which is the material they use for those signs that stick in people's yards. And that stuff can handle the weather, right? And you could actually use that as a shield, and it looks like corrugated plastic. And that also can be cut with a razor knife or with scissors, and that can be used as a shield. But I like the foam, so that's why I use it. they're watching the stream, it's just your back. She's like, I'm done. I'm out. I told her, I said, you can walk away anytime. She said, no, I'll just sit here and just photograph the
I'm
tank.
trying to take a picture of my face.
Why don't you use the clip so you get good colors? Are you happy with the coloration you're getting?
No.
The clip's right there on top of the container. Under the walkboard.
What? Oh.
Let's see.
Look.
That little clip right there takes out the blue when you're trying to take pictures of stuff in your tank with your cell phone. And I've been recommending for a long time.
Well, you knew I was coming.
Dorchester Coral Farm Graham Jeffries says, I use a Q-tip to remove ick. Let's see. Mike says, watch out for acrylic sheets that aren't labeled. That's usually extruded and the tolerance is super wide. I've seen a plus or minus of 0.015
Wow.
when I was a tool and die machinist. No, I agree with you completely. I do know I've cast acrylic. That I know. But it didn't say ChemCast, which is the brand I wanted. And it's the one I like. Another one I like is Acrylite. And they have GP and FF. And GP is cast and FF is extruded. You can use extruded acrylic for sumps. It's okay. It's not fantastic. Cast is stronger. It's a little more precise. And it's the one I really prefer to use.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's that thing?
That's a cucumber.
No, there.
Gravel.
No.
Looks like some kind of coral skeleton. Did you take a picture of it so I can see it? You're holding a phone.
No, I just wanted to know. It looks alive.
Paul says, tell me about sumping fish or inverts that you don't want in your display tank. None. I don't actually, people have been saying this for the last few years. Like if they see something they don't like or they're worried about, people's response is always, sump it. Like whatever that thing is, put it in the sump. What a weird place to put something that was in your display tank. This is the reef. The sump is the filtration. I don't put things down in the sump to hide it, like some kind of crab or something. It's just an oddity, and I think it'll eventually just starve to death down there. So I don't suggest putting anything in the sump other than your filtration, because if you put fish down there, they could get sucked into and damage against pumps. A snail could obstruct and actually block the whole of the water going into the pump and cause the pump to overheat and burn up. So there's these kind of things. There's no reason to put these things down there.
In New York, you know what we say?
What?
If you see something, say something.
Say something. It's time to put the microphone back on you. She's getting funny, people.
Oh, but look how pretty.
Did you figure out what you're looking at?
Oh, that thing?
Yeah, that thing.
No, I don't know.
It might be a piece. Here you go. It might be a piece of the cactus coral. Yeah, look, this one.
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Wow. Look at that pretty little fish.
Let's see.
Look, people are going to Mini-Mac now.
Good.
See?
No, I'm still reading.
All right, well.
I'm looking for questions, actually. There's a lot in the chat, guys. Give me a second.
I know, but why am I faster than you when I'm on?
Because you're looking at the bottom, I'm looking at the top. That's why. Plus, I'm actually reading everything, not just part of it. You just pick ones you like because they're green or something.
No.
If it's a gray circle, you'll read it. Oh, Kayvon says, what should we make for practice? If you're trying to make something out of acrylic for the first time, a very small container of some kind would be good. Maybe a container you could use to hold dosing. You want to trickle in alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, acropower, whatever, something like that. You could make a small tank for quarantine purposes. You could make a small vessel to hold water for top off.
Wait, so the first thing I made out of acrylic was a peacemaker.
You did.
A baby one.
You did.
And then a lid.
And a lid for it. That's true. Yeah, we made a nano peacemaker for the aquarium cube.
Because my little gobies are precious.
Yeah. By the way, those gobies are still doing really well, y'all.
The Randalls. Oh
yeah. They just need a pistol shrimp.
Yeah. Eventually. They started digging like their own holes.
Okay, Reef and Chill, I love that name, says, I enjoy these streams on my headphones while I'm doing projects. I'm not always watching, but I enjoy the listen. Thanks. Well, thank you for listening. Appreciate that. You're missing Caitlin's back. Only you turn your back to the camera for the whole show.
No. For
half the show. For the second half of the show.
No, for like the last 45, the quarter of the show.
Caitlin, do you know the answer to this? I want to get an orange spot filefish. I heard they're quite difficult. Can you elaborate and discuss how to save finicky eaters? What do you know about the orange spot filefish?
What do I know about them?
Yeah, you're the fish girl.
Oh, they're very pretty. I feel like they're part of the Toby family. No, they're not. Yeah, they're finicky. You'll probably do best with like a small live food. So it depends on where you're.
And the reason you're getting them is to eat pests, right? Isn't that the idea for the orange spot filefish? I mean, they're so pretty, but I think they eat like bugs off of acropores and stuff. Isn't that right? Am I thinking about that one that was on the side of the coffee mug?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think people get them for that purpose, not just to have this cool looking fish. Like
They're
you
so
said,
cute.
They're really pretty. And we know Matt Peterson actually bred them. He was the first one to do that fish, I believe. And then after he was done, he moved on to another fish type to raise. But I've never tried to keep one myself. I always felt like they were too hard. I just didn't even see the point in trying.
I feel like I was talking about these the other day with you.
Yeah, so maybe she'll find you some more information. I'll go on to the next question. In the meantime, we'll come back to it. Tassos says, what is the appropriate tank size for a purple tang, a blue tang, a cold tang, and a powder blue tang? Oh, I'll just say 280 gallons. That's 6 feet by 30 inches by 30 inches. That's a nice size tank, and that would hold those tanks very nicely. And then Jerry says, how big is that tank? That one is 400 gallons. It's 7 feet long by 3 feet wide by 30 inches tall. Mr. Moo says, have you ever experimented with non-reef safe fish in your tank? No, I have not.
Except the copper band.
Yeah, copper bands are fine. All right, so Caitlin gave me this little tidbit here about the orange spotted filefish.
They need live corals.
They are difficult to maintain in an aquarium unless provided with live corals. They must be kept in species-specific tanks or tanks with very passive tank mates such as seahorses or pipefish. They have been successfully bred in captivity. So that's what it was. They eat the acropora. So that might be challenging because you're constantly having to put living coral in there for this fish to eat. I thought it ate pests off of the coral, so I was wrong. And I'm glad you looked that up. Like I said, they're really pretty. Having them in a tank with seahorses and pipefish would be really cool because it's a completely different shape from the others. And you're going to heavily feed that tank anyway, but you're going to put coral in there on a regular basis to keep this fish alive. So you have to decide if that's worth the effort. Now, if you were like Dwayne, who grows 800 frags a year, he'd probably say, sure, I can put a little mini colony in there once a week and not even think about it, because he always has more growing in the background. But if you have one setup with a limited amount of livestock, you might find that it's too expensive to keep buying corals to feed this one fish.
But that's also the instance where you want to have a biotope.
Yeah, well, that's why it said species specific.
Yeah.
But like I said, you have to keep putting a coral in there. Unless you can somehow, which I don't know if it's even possible, get that fish off of coral and wanting to eat prepared foods.
You could also grow coral fairly easily, no?
Depends what their diet is. Like I said, I think it's SPS corals. And they grow very slowly. I mean, it took a year to do that. And if you had a coral pecking fish hitting that all the time, it'd be half of that coral because all the polyps would be sucked out. Thomas says, a heads up on the cleanup crew. I loaded up on hermit crabs and snails and a red-colored emerald crab. The crustaceans have eradicated my pod population. My mandarin and some fish have disappeared. Well, the hermit crabs and the snails did not eat your pods. Even the red-colored emerald crab doesn't eat pods. It could be that your fish were eating the pods, and there's a limited amount. It also comes down to the size of the tank, but typically cleanup crews don't go after pods. There are certain fish that eat pods, and there's also a certain amount of food in the tank to support the pod population. And it could be, think about this, and I'm just talking it through. You clearly had an algae problem because you put in a cleanup crew all of a sudden. So if you were worried about algae, you were feeding less to the tank. So now the pods are starving. You had the cleanup crew to get this algae out. You're not adding any kind of decent nutrients to the tank because you're trying to get the algae under control, and your pods just basically collapse, and you're down to just little bits here and there, and that could be it. Now, the fact that you lost some fish, I'm very sorry to hear that, of course. You can buy pods to add to the tank, but I don't think the cleanup crew was the cause of the scenario here from what you described, because none of those animals you described are pod eaters. They are picking at algae, and they're eating that, and I just don't see how they could have any effect on the population of pods. That's my assumption. I could be wrong, and feel free to add more comment if I was way off base, but I think that's not right. Maria, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think the reef looks great today. Yeah, Andrea says, she has a potty mouth. I love her. She's gone. Oh well. All these comments. Oh, you're in so much trouble. I'm going to screenshot this. Caitlin! Somebody said, she said Chuck. I heard it.
What's up?
Okay, all these... Oh, she's on the phone during a live stream. Yeah. All right, whatever. We'll get back to this. Let's break this one down. Lucas says, do you believe I have an acro that actually survived an alk swing to 13? Phosphate at 1. There's STN. Alkalinity dipped to 4.5. I have T5 lighting that died out of 6 total, and now the stable, amazing color and growth. Well, regardless, basically what you're saying is my reef lived in spite of me. And that does happen at times. A big alkalinity swing, like you said, 13 down to 4.5, that's terrible. We should never do that. You want to find some number you like, which in your case might be 8.5 or something. Something got away from you, obviously. So you're really lucky that you had a survivor, a coral that turned out to be super colorful. And I'll tell you, there are times where I will have something very strange happen in my tank, like alkalinity shot up or pH did something nutty for a moment. And then I'll have this amazing looking coral, and I think to myself, so that's what the coral sellers are doing to make these wild looking corals. Because it's like we never see this. Like, for example, I had a Cephastria, and it was a really pretty coral. It was fine. It had like a blue skin, and it had like pink polyps. And then my pH shot up my tank really, really badly. I forget what I did, but I overdosed something. Clearly something to do with alkalinity. And it went up really high. The corals were all stressed. And I got it back down where it belonged, as soon as I discovered what happened. But then after that, the Cephastria had like these white streaks, like lightning going through it. And I was like, that looks so cool. And there was another time where I had, I overdosed the Prodibio product while running biopellets. They say you can't overdose Prodibio, but apparently the biopellet reactor was like a nuclear reactor. And when talking with the people at Prodibio, they basically felt like I'm probably correct that their bacteria supercharged in the biopellet reactor and caused this weird thing because anything in my tank that was green turned brown. And so I had this huge Montipora capricornus that was green that turned completely brown. And then when I got things situated by basically stop dosing for a while and take the biopellet reactor offline, a new rim grew on the edge and it was bright green. So I had this brown Capricornus with a green rim. I was like, that's kind of cool looking. And it was just a strange thing you would never see normally. And eventually it all got back to its normal color. So I just had to wait 12 weeks. But it's when you see these very strange looks in your corals, and I can think of more and more stories of corals changing color, not for good reasons usually. And it makes me think, well, is that how coral vendors get that coral we've never seen before that looks so ridiculously insane? I don't know. It's a funny thing that happens. Sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we just lose the coral. I remember when my first SPS colonies I got way back in 2002, it was always like this, it was kind of a deep, it was pretty much a deep green. And then it started changing colors and it turned kind of yellow and then it went kind of leaned into the blue and then it was going into the orange. Like, that's not a good sign. Because when it went through the colors of the rainbow, it wasn't long after that the thing was gone. Just the whole thing died. And I saw it coming and I wasn't even surprised because corals don't do that. That's not normal at all. All right.
What was I in trouble for?
For the F word, I took a screenshot. You should see all the comments.
What?
People are saying you have a potty mouth.
Oh!
One person said, clearly she said Chuck.
Yes, I said Chuck.
Yeah,
With a capital
yeah.
C.
I'm sure YouTube won't have any problem with what you said. Got to be advertiser friendly, woman. Let's see.
That's a lot of work.
Justin says, I'm going to drill a hole for the float valve on my acrylic top-off container. Any special drill bit I need? For that hole, you can actually use a paddle bit, and it'll just go through. But one I really like better, I mean, I did a million holes that way, but a bit that I like better is called a stepper bit. Basically, it looks like it comes to a point and gets wider as it goes down, and it looks like a Christmas tree if you hold it up for the profile. And that stepper bit is so clean, it cuts through, and the way it works is the farther you push it in, the larger the hole becomes because, it starts off, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, and then it's probably 3/16, and then it's a 1/4 inch, and then it's 5/16, and then it's a 1/2 inch, and you go to each step is the next size hole. So what you can do, you go to your float valve, which is probably 1/2 inch or 9/16, and you can put a piece of blue tape right around that ring on the stepper bit, and then drill up through the acrylic straight to the tape and stop, and then pull it back out, and then test to see if your float valve fits in there properly, and you're done. And it takes 15 to 40 seconds, depending how quickly you go. It's not a big deal. Don't put a lot of pressure. You don't have to go slowly with the bit or fast. You just kind of let the drill spin and just kind of go at it. I don't do variable speed, for example. I just pull the trigger and drill through. All right. Nicholas says, do you ever get a slight raise 48 hours after being dosed? You must be talking about phosphate Rx, like did the phosphate go back up? Phosphate can go away from, okay, phosphate Rx is used to lower phosphate in the tank, and then after it's dropped and you test it and it's gone, and then you check a few days later, it seems to have risen again, it's because it's coming back out of the rock and sand. It didn't get rid of all of it. It came back with a little bit more. That's a good shot.
His tiny feet.
I see the tiny face, yeah. Crack on Reef says, refugium or no refugium? I like a refugium, but these days we have other choices. The algae turf scrubber is one option. The Ketomorpha reactor is another one. So maybe you don't need it, but I kind of like having them on all my tanks. I mean, both of these systems behind me both have refugiums, and I've been doing it like this for a very long time. And then Sawyer says, would you put heaters in the same section as the refugium? I would not. The water going through the refugium is usually going through at a slower rate, and so it's not going to heat your system properly because the warm water is sitting in the refugium versus the entire setup. I'd much rather be in an area of high flow where the majority of your water is going to definitely come in contact with those heaters and maintain a good overall temperature of everything. And you can take your temperature probe and you can move it zone to zone. So whatever you're using to measure with, whether it's a glass thermometer or you're using an actual probe on a controller, you can put it in the display, you can put it in the skimmer section, you can put it in the refugium section, you can put it in the return section, and you can see if there's any variances. But typically we want all the water in the whole system at the exact same temperature all the time. Jeff says, I want to run water lines from the basement upstairs to the tank and sump. How do you determine, or from the, anyway, he says, how do you determine at what height I put the water connection in the wall? Obviously not behind the tank, correct? Okay, so I think the sump is in the basement and the tank is upstairs, right? I would bring the pipes from the basement up through the floor or inside the wall and come in through the back of the stand and then into the bottom of the tank going up, because the odds are your tank has bulkheads in the bottom and you're going to plumb into that. If you have the bulkheads like coming up through the floorboards, you could have a coupling, right? Not a coupling, a union right there. So if you ever had to change some plumbing, you can just unscrew right there at the floorboard and then kind of correct those 2 or 3 feet of pipe. I wouldn't come up to the top of the tank or behind the tank because you can't reach anything to hook up plumbing. You got to definitely give yourself some working room. So I would do it somewhere down low in the stand or the middle of the stand in the back. Let's see. Kevin says, just claims she has Tourette syndrome. You left an impact today. All because of a tiny fish this big in a 400-gallon reef. Mm.
I'll be quiet.
Huang says, did Caitlin just say the F word? Was that fantastic?
I said nothing.
Kathy says, what are those long tentacle-looking things? This would be a sea bay anemone, and then there's some bubble tips down here as well.
Oh, maybe she meant that.
Or if you're talking about that thing way over there in the end, that's a gorgonian. Awesome. Dennis says, I'm going to be doing a 45-gallon tank for my better half and connecting it into the existing system. We'll have to put pictures of everything, including the aquarium build, in the group. Yes, please do that. The group he's talking about is Club Milo's Reef, and we would love to have you there. We have a great friendly group, and we remove everything that offends me. So if
Like
people
me.
are being mean to each other, they're gone. It's I don't understand why I have to explain this. Just be nice to people. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and don't lash out at them when you don't like what they said. Just report to moderator and let us handle it. Don't get yourself sucked into the pit of despair. No, we keep the group friendly so that people won't feel nervous to ask a question, because that just irritates me. I want to ask a question. I don't want to be made fun of. And if you want to ask a question, I don't want you to feel like you're going to be made fun of. So we made the group specifically to help us communicate and be friendly with each other. Oh, you're going to have so much fun reading all the comments after the stream is over. You wouldn't believe the stuff I'm reading here.
Nuh-uh.
Greg says, is there a way to calculate the actual water volume? Yes. So when you take your aquarium, you would take in inches the length by the width by the height. So let's say like this one here, 84 inches long times 36 wide times 30 inches tall equals, and then divide that number by 231, and that gets you the number. Mathematically, that makes mine 399.5 gallons, or 398.5 gallons. But if you take a tape measure and you measure from inside the glass to inside the glass, that will not be 84 inches at all. It might be 81.5, for example. It could be 80.5, because there's plastic trim on this tank too, and they calculate that in the math. So let's say it's 81.5 long by 34.25 by 26 inches. That's the true water volume in this tank. And then when you do the same thing with a sump, if you have a sump that's 36 inches long and 16 wide, inside it's 35.5 long and it's 15.5 wide, and then it's whatever 9 inches tall. And then you take those three numbers, divided by 231, that gives you a total water volume of that. And you combine the real water in there, the real water down there, and that's how I know this tank behind me, even though it's a 400-gallon tank with a 60-gallon anemone cube and a huge sump, there's really only 450 gallons of true water in the entire system. The Briar Patch says, I love the live streams. Does 2021 hold any production videos, or are you focusing more on the streams? I have been focusing on these streams nonstop because I've been working throughout the week. But I have been saying for the longest time, I want to get back to editing videos. I'm going to find a way to start putting out some edited content as well that are shorter. And hopefully you will enjoy them. And we'll continue to do our streams on the weekends because, I mean, honestly, this morning I was thinking, what if I just stopped doing streams on Saturday? How would you guys feel? Because I thought if I'm not doing the stream on Saturday, I could actually sit down and edit a video for 4 or 5 hours and have something like that come out once a week. I don't know. I used to have free time. I just don't. Business has been really good, and what a horrible problem to have, right? So because of that, I just, I would like to squeeze out some time. We've had a lot of projects we had to accomplish, and we've been working on systematically knocking things out, and getting them done will actually help a lot in the opportunity for me to actually have some time to just sit and edit quietly. So we'll see. I'll do what I can. Regis says, does LiveRock Enhance help to overcome the ugly stage on the new tanks? Yes, it does. Also, Microbacter Clean is another choice you could use. Oh, your face is half gone.
Oh, that's okay.
Let me remove this.
No, it's fine.
Here, we'll do this.
Oh.
No, hang on. I got it. Here, do your eyes. No, I got to do it, or it's just your eyes. There. Perfect. It's like the Halloween episode when we can only see your eyes. All right, there we go.
God, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, she wasn't ready. Let's see. So anyway, those are a couple of products you can use. Microbacter Clean or LiveRock Enhance are both pretty good at cleaning up the rockwork after during the initial stages. It's not going to make it perfect, but it's definitely going to help. I don't know why this keeps opening. All right.
Look, I'm in a door.
Are you jumping ahead? I'm not to that question yet. Dennis says, have you done a complete walk around of your reef, view of the sides? Yes. If you will look at probably the January 2nd video of last year, it's the, I'm embarrassed to say, the 6th year anniversary of the tank, and I did the entire tour of the setup. And you can watch it from every angle. And then probably the video from the summer before that. There's a video about the new sump installation, and I show tearing out the old sump, which took like 20 minutes or so of video. And then the second half of that video shows a lot about the setup and the new plumbing and everything. Cray says, thoughts on closed loops? Are they obsolete? They're very popular in public aquariums. And they're not so popular with personal aquariums so much because of all the plumbing it needs. A closed loop, for those of you who don't know, is a pump somewhere outside the tank. There's a bulkhead in the tank with water going out the pipe into that pump and pushing it right back into another bulkhead. And so the water is constantly moving with water. There's no air. It's not a drain because it's sucking water out and pushing it back in instead of having power heads in the display tank itself.
Who's Darla?
I'm not down there yet. I don't know. I'm way up here where it says Cravon. Quit jumping ahead.
Sorry.
So are they obsolete? No. Are they popular? No. Because people are putting in things like Gyres and Jabos and Tunzi and Vortec and Siche. I mean, there's so many brands of pumps out there that you can use these days. And they're smaller and they're DC powered and people are really enjoying them. And there's you don't have to worry about a tank leaking from an internal power head. Where you do have to worry about something happening if there's a bulkhead going out of the tank with a pipe that leads out, because anything go wrong in that area. All the way back to going back in. What's funny is, I just saw a comment here somewhere. It said something about, I like the stream because of Caitlin. And then you're over there, that's what she said.
What you said?
Make and Fix Stuff says, how's the algae scrubber doing? Would you recommend it? Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really good, I gotta move this thing. I think it's a really good device. I'm going to put it down here. No, see, that's covering the words too. There's too many things on the screen. Here, I'll do this. No, I don't like it there. I'll put it right there.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Are you tired? You want the stream to be over?
No.
I feel like you want the stream to be over.
No, I'm fine.
You're lying. She's like, I want the stream to be over. Yeah, we're going to wrap this up here. Let me just kind of see, I'm near the bottom of the deal. Can't ignore people. They are here for a reason. Oh, look at it. You got a thumbs down. That was you.
Me?
Well, I doubt it was me.
Check yourself.
All right, let's see. Easy.
Farts.
Rob says, nice job, actually. I'm proud of you there. Look, everyone.
Oh! No, it's gone.
All right. So Rob said, is there a flow sensor that doesn't need the apex? I think there probably is, but I don't know who makes it. I'm sure it's some off-the-market thing that you could use, but the one that's built for the apex is probably the more popular choice because they have it in different sizes for different size plumbing.
If looks can kill.
Are you doing evil eyes?
No.
Okay, good.
Oh, Elmo's foam board, that's actually a good idea.
You're still jumping down. Nick says, do you recommend, what do you recommend for flow rate through the sump on a 180-gallon tank with dual overflows? Probably about 1,000 gallons an hour. And then Alex sent a super chat. Thank you so much for that. Can you suggest a good pump for mixing salt in a mixing station? How often do you disinfect the storage container? Any tips are appreciated. You probably clean a container once every 6 months. If you're not going to do it every 6 months, at least once a year. And then you didn't say what size the container is that you're trying to do, but let's say you had a couple of 60-gallon containers, for example. You could use an Eheim pump. You could use a mag pump. You could use a Vectra pump like I do if you want. I put a Vectra M2 on the big poly tank that's behind the reef. And I really thought it's not going to be big enough. It's a very small pump. I hooked it up because I took this giant pump off and I put this thing there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I hooked it up and I ran it. And then the water came out at 8 feet up in the sea. I was like, all right, well, it's moving water. And it took me days, maybe even a week to realize it was set at 10%. So I turned the Vector all the way up to 100%. You could see the water gushing in. I was like, wow. So that was really cool. So I used an M2 for circulating 265 gallons of water. You could probably get away with the S2, for example, the little tiny guy, and probably do really well for like a 60-gallon setup, if that's what you're doing. I don't know what size you're using for containers.
Look. Hi, Ella. Hi. Hi. Aw. That one.
I'll get there.
All right. That one's important. Hi, Ella. Hi.
Skill says, do you think it would be safe to place carbon foam block in a sump baffle along with carbon in a carbon reactor, or would that be overkill? That would be overkill. You just need carbon in a carbon reactor.
No, look.
I'm getting there. It's scrolling up. Look, see? Hi, Ella. Caitlin beat me to it. She always reads the bottom half of the chat. I'm always reading the top half. I'm trying not to overlook any of you.
Hi, Ella.
It says she is now a better reefer than me and loves your videos. Aww.
It's like us.
That's nice. I like it.
Just jumped in. Who's the hottie? Jack.
Jack's sleeping.
You're the hottie.
Oh, I like that. Let's see. Oh, let's move this thing way up here. There we go. Sojourn said, I'm a mechanical engineer. Remember I said it's someone that runs a train.
Mm-hmm.
Machinist and did static analysis on the tank and sump I designed. It turns out the rules of thumb for tank thickness are widely inaccurate. Wow. We both did that. She mouthed, and I said, wow, at the same moment. That's funny.
Wow.
So you're not a guy that drives trains. All right, engineer. I always think the guy that runs the train.
I know, but
They have the cute little hat.
Those are train
engineers. Exactly.
Okay, look, there's more than one engineer, sir.
Clearly, that's right. It's the only way my brain goes to.
Well, it's okay if your brain's only this big.
She keeps me humble. She keeps me humble. Kevin says, why don't you have pistol shrimps? Well, we got one and it didn't make it. And we got another and it didn't make it. But we believe the reason, the reason it didn't make it is because of the high nitrate. That's our guess.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to get these nitrates lower and lower so we can get one that will be happy and survive. Now, it could be the nitrates had nothing to do with it, but we think it was the nitrates because they were really high.
because we dropped the fish in and the shrimp in, and the shrimp was like, bleh.
Yeah, the shrimp didn't make it. It was so strange. And then we bought this new one. It didn't make it. We're like, what is going on? And that's when we realized the nitrates were even worse than I thought. And we both felt really badly about that. So that's why we're trying to get it corrected. The chat box that I always follow to see what you guys are saying, they made the font smaller. And I'm over here struggling to see what you guys are typing.
Your reading glasses.
I need my other glasses. I know. Stop it. Kim says, are you still using Benereef? I just found some in the UK. Well, that's good news. And yeah, I do use it. I use it a couple times a week. So, matter of fact, because I use so much of it and because I sell it, I was given a giant container of it like they do for public aquariums. It said all over it, not for resale. I'm like, why would I sell it? I love this stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was a really ginormous jar. It was really great. Let's see. Pat says, what would you say is the average depth of your sand bed and what grain size? The grain size, you're at the bottom again. The grain size is 3 millimeters or smaller, so it's kind of a larger grade, and it's about 3 to 4 inches in average height.
Shall we take a piece out?
Piece of what?
The gravel.
No.
But you wanted accuracy.
I just gave her accuracy. 3 millimeters or smaller. That's about as accurate as I can get. I used metric numbers.
Do you only help with saltwater tanks?
You're reading the bottom again.
No, I know.
Yes,
but
you are.
No, listen. I really love planted tanks and freshwater tanks, so if you have other questions, I guess I could maybe help.
LOL. Time for a new coaster. Look what it says. God. I can't believe I have to go listen to this to find it.
I can help with freshwater.
Rob says, we've had that issue with that last night, the rudeness in Club Meals Reef. Yeah, Rob, if you see anything, if any of you guys see anything in Club Meals Reef that is irritating you, please report it so we can handle it and remove it rapidly. There are some Facebook algorithms that actually find some of it for us before it happens. I think people are just so on edge these days because of COVID. Everything just makes them mad, and they'll be in a fish group talking about fish food, and suddenly they're saying each other's throats for no reason. That would never happen in person.
All right, in my defense,
you were just excited about fish.
I was excited.
No, I'm talking about what's happening in the club, in the group.
There's
been some real aggression lately, and that has not existed. And so if you guys are seeing that now, that makes me a little ashamed for the group because the group is designed to be friendly for one another. And I am I'm offended when I see it. I'm just like, no. So I've told the moderators to be extra judicious and go in there and find things and remove it. And that's not what the point. The group is not to be personally attacked. So keep it friendly, keep it family friendly, and let's just enjoy sharing our experiences and enjoy our reefs and not bait each other's throats. There's just no need for that. There's enough. I was going to say enough anger in the world as it is. We don't need it in our hobby. So find some other group to yell at each other. Or go do a water change. That's what I always say. Trixie's asking questions about your future tank. Just want to know if you have a tank of your own yet. Not yet. It's going to happen. We have to find that sweet spot, and we got to find the sweet creature she wants.
The sweet spot is in that corner,
yeah.
And the size is 60 gallons, and it's going to be a floating reef, and there's going to be lots of tremagobes.
Tremagobes. That'd be nice. I'm pretty sure they heard all that.
Cool.
Let's see.
Because this is it.
OS says, quick question. I just set up my dosing. Where do I put the cord? In the skimmer area, I think you're talking about where do you put the tubing from the doser. Put it in the return zone and put some small power head in the return zone to keep the water going like this. So as the dosing trickles in, it mixes instantly and doesn't just go to the bottom and coagulate on the base of the sump.
You said coagulate.
I did. Like solidify.
Like blood.
Yeah, like blood.
Sorry.
Any tips for fishless reef tanks?
Mm-mm.
No. Reefs need fish because the corals eat the fish poop. So you gotta have some fish in there.
For fishless reef tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you deprive yourself of that happening? Come on.
Yeah. No, we don't have any tips. Sorry.
Mm-mm.
No, really, some fish are good. There are people that set up tanks that have no fish at all, and the corals get really pale, and they're like, what's wrong with my corals? And they add some fish, and the corals color up. They need that interaction from the fish. The fish help keep it clean, too. You're still scrolling at the bottom. Let me get up there.
Well, there's a baby who pooped in it.
Off top. Greg says, my question about water volume was meant to ask with rock and livestock. Well, okay, so like I said, I gave you dimensional measurements, but then the rock displaces water, the sand displaces water. Another thing you can do, if you want, is you can do a really big water change, and you can see how much came out of your tank to know how much water is actually in there. I'm not saying go down to the sand bed, but if you pull out, like down to here, and it was only 200 gallons, you're like, this isn't 400 gallons. There's that much sand and rock, and they're not, just displacing so much water.
How do your fish feel?
Well, they'll be down here at the low area, but you could actually get a good guesstimate of what's going on with how much is being used. You'll never get it exactly to the drop, but you should be able to get a good ballpark, and some of it is estimated rather than some kind of mathematical computation.
Yeah, now it's all displacement.
I don't know if there's some way. Odds are there's some kind of app that could tell you exactly some kind of 3D rendering of your reef and the dimensional, and it could, use computations to figure out what each piece's density is. But some rock is more porous than others, so like I said, it's never going to be exact.
Oh, they're like bones.
Lamont says, y'all so funny today. Thank you.
I tried hard. I failed.
Chris says, I have a 6-foot tank that's 24 inches deep. I have 3 radions, the Gen 4 Pros. I never know if I have enough par. I'm running 50% intensity. Do you think I should increase it? I have SPS with little growth. Yeah, I think you should increase it. I think you should ramp it up probably 10% for the next 4 weeks to get yourself up to somewhere around, next 3 weeks. I'd like to see your tank more around 80, 85% and see how that does, but don't do it all day long. Like, have it start off at a lower number, and basically, I always talk about this grade, it's a bell curve. And so you're starting off at 15%, and then it goes to 25, and then 30, and then it's up to, whatever, higher numbers. And then it bell curves back down again. So you have a peak of the day when it's really at 85%, but it's not 85% for like 9 hours straight. So we want to bring it up, 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 and then bring it down, 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 down. And if you do that each day, your corals will get that high noon. They won't get blasted to where the skin peels off. And like I said, you're already at 50% now, so I would go to 60% with this bell curve, and then I'll go to 70%, and then finally 80, 85.
You know what I've been wanting to ask you about is the tide.
The flow, like tidal mode?
Yeah.
So what's your question? When do I do it?
No, how do you feel about it?
Oh, I like it. It's kind of a nice way to clean your reef. She asked about having tidal flow through the reef. It's actually an option with the Vortex where you can do tidal mode, and it does this weird pulsing.
Because it does like the whole like lunar thing,
and it kicks things up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a different thing. I'm talking about like literally changing the flow. The lunar cycle is a whole other thing.
No, well.
But you're saying time it to where they match each other.
Well, yeah, in like
It's possible.
It is. No, I know, because
Yeah.
that's what they had at the Omaha Zoo.
Yeah.
And they do like the whole like.
They follow a very close schedule to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can tell you when I was doing my anemone cube for a long time, I had it at 80%, and I was using a Radeon light as well, and it was 80%, and the tank looked okay. And then one day I thought, you know what? I'll try 85%. And the tank looked 20% better. And I was like, wow, 5% made all the difference. So that's why I'm saying I do think you need to increase. Also, be patient. Corals do take time. They have to adapt to your lighting, and they can be overlit. So we don't want to cook them. All right, so I hope all that helps you a little bit and makes sense. Chris says, I'm dosing no-pox because of high nitrate. How long before I start seeing results? Should be 4 to 8 weeks when you start seeing results, but your mileage may vary. Lamont, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. And we're gonna make this our last question. Yeah, let's let me see. Let me see if I can find one good question to wrap it up on. But there's so many good ones here.
I know.
Gino says, any advice on keeping Antheus? How many for a 120-gallon tank? Oh, I'd like to see 5 lyre tails in your tank. I think that'd be nice.
Depends on the kind of Antheus.
I have, this is a lyre tail right here, this orange one.
He's so pretty.
Not that one, that's a skunk. That one's a lyre tail. And there's actually 3 in the tank. There's 2 girls and a boy. And you need to acclimate them quickly, like 45 minutes. Don't take too long because they will suffocate from lack of oxygen. They're really picky that way. But 3 to 5 would be nice. It's always an odd group. Typically, you're going to get all females. If the store happens to sell a male, you'll see it's purple. And you can have a male with these females. But normally, you just get females and 1 will turn male. And you have this nice little group in your tank. I wouldn't get a ton of them unless you plan to. You know, if your thought is, I want a reef of Antheus. Okay, that's different. And they need to be fed a lot of times, multiple times a day. So, you know, you're looking at buying things like arctopods you can squeeze in, using Benareef, using, what else? PE mysis, different foods that they can gobble up. They do like the plankton-sized foods, and they like to be fed multiple times a day. Can't overemphasize that
They're
one.
very demanding.
Yeah, if you are not putting food in the tank on a regular basis, you'll end up not having Antheus. All right.
I don't. Oh, look, he doesn't drive. Oh, look. No, I don't. Look, he doesn't drive trains. I told you.
Ow. Where does it say that? Right here?
Look, no. I don't drive trains.
You should, because you're an engineer. He says, I design and build machines. Would they be the shape of a locomotive? Okay, fine, I'm done. But that was funny. Oh, I can't wait till this is over. She's going to yell at me. How could you? Let's see. Heron says, did you get any further with the methanol denitrification? Love cussing Caitlin. Like I said, YouTube's going to flag this one so quick.
Do you see my cheeks?
That cost us our millions.
I'm so embarrassed.
I'm not going to say anything there.
Hey, look, fins and fur. He's from Hindi.
He's from Hindi.
Fins and fur.
Is Hindi a place? He's from Hindi.
I'm pretty sure it's in India. Or is it?
I'm going to not say anything because I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong because I'm bad at this. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. That is the end of our live stream. It is Water Test Saturday. Test all your water. Alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, salinity, temperature, phosphate, nitrate. We want to know all these things, and we do this. Why?
Water test save lives!
Water tests save lives. It's really important. And we'll be back next week. I don't know. Maybe I won't let her on since she cusses so much. But we love that you tuned in today. I apologize to YouTube profusely. And if you have any questions or you want to reach me, you can use the contact us on the website. Or, you know, a lot of people are calling me, and I'm not answering because 99% of my phone calls are robocalls. And so if you've got my number, text me, and I will respond to that. Or leave an actual voicemail. That helps too. But you can always reach me on Club Mila's Reef. I'm in there. You can tag me. You can tag Mila's Reef Inc. Or you can tag Mark Levinson. I'm not that impossible to find, trust me. I had one person this last week say, I have tried everything to get a hold of you. And he did everything he could to get a hold of me within a 1 hour period. And I was like, oh. And I thought it was like he's been trying to reach me for decades and could not get a hold of me. But anyway, I am here to help anytime I can, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye!